me. My name is Mi Hung, and I am a digital artist. I have also created large-scale textile installations, but more recently, I've been working digitally. My process is really much about deconstructing and then reconstructing. So I take pictures of flora and flowers and plants, and then I bring it into my computer, I deconstruct it, and then I recreate kind of like a new world with it. And over the years, I've never really been medium specific. I've tried lots of different things. I think my intention has really always been about self-reflection and honesty. And really more recently too, about facing the uncomfortable and using art as a medium to face what is challenging about myself, what's going on with me. And then also inevitably that makes you think about how you relate to the world. And so, you know, the more we can use art, well, the more I use art in that way, it feels so fulfilling for me. And it feels like I am not only speaking for myself, but I also can relate or create a platform for maybe other Asian American women artists who I think are very underrepresented. I'm a very introverted person, so speaking, is an uncomfortable thing for me. So that's why I was like, okay, this is an uncomfortable thing that you should do because it will help you grow, and it also will help others who can relate to that discomfort to feel like they can also share their voice. In a nutshell, that is what I do. I'm based in the SF Bay area, born and raised, and I also live in Alameda. So it's great to be connected with you all. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much. Well, yeah, it's going to be a loaded one, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be a fun one. It looks like my questions will be irrelevant. And so, Mihang, are you okay if we start with you, or would you like us to give you a breather?
I'm happy to begin if you'd like. Sure.
Okay, right. Okay, techies, roll it away. Let's have Mihang's work on the screen. It's the black and white one with the flowers.
Yeah.
Not that one. That's not the one.
That one is amazing.
Totally is, yeah. Oh, there we go. So, could you tell us more about the piece? Yeah, tell us about your submission.
Sure. So my pieces are always very reflective of my environment. I take walks around Alameda, and I actually really like to visit the Encinal Nursery a lot. And so whenever I see patterns in the plants that I come across that I think are interesting, I'll take pictures of them. I don't know what will come out of them. And similar to a lot of the other artists here, I forgot who it was it maybe Paige, who said that, I will accept the project not knowing how it will turn out. And I think that's always how I work, is I never know what's going to happen. But it's that trusting of the process and the honesty that I try to use as my intention that helps me carry through through to the end of it. So this is a mixture of a lot of different photographs that I've put into Photoshop, and I've extracted elements of it and then replaced them together to create a whole entire different imagery and different plant, I guess. And what this is the title is Moon 2, which is actually part of a series that I've been creating. And the Moon series is about the growth that happens in the dark, or that happens in places that are unseen. I think that, we often mistake this, we get, I guess, caught up with what's on the outside. And especially as a social media saturated world, we always see what are the wins and the, what's on the picture, what's on the outside. And we often don't realize how much work has to happen in the dark, where no one's going to be your witness, and you're going to be your only witness. You have to work through those long hours of no one recognizing you. And so I created this series to, I guess, paradoxically bring light to that truth of being an artist, is all of the the quiet hours in the dark that and I think also just as a person, if you're, you know, growing as a person, you know, especially during these during a time where we have to face ugly truths about our country, about the world, climate change, racism, so many things. There's a lot of work that has to be done quietly, and I think that work, you know, needs to be recognized. So Moon 2 is a piece of the series that kind of embodies that ideology.
Wow. Thank you so much for that. I've got no further questions. It looks like we've got a flow going already. The work is so powerful. I don't want to take any more time. That was really powerful sharing, Mihang. And yeah, I could speak volumes on that, but this is not my platform. I'm just the driver. Thank you so much. And we'll get back to you with questions from each other and from the audience. But yeah, that was some powerful stuff. Great. So now I've got it kind of like in reverse. So I'll have Raymond go next. Are you okay? Are you ready to go, Raymond?
Yes, I just unmuted.
Okay, great. Awesome. So
go ahead.
Tell us about the piece.
So I work on small panels, wood panels, 8 by 8 inches to 60 by 60, 5 by 5 feet. And when the COVID happened, so I'm a builder. I work about 5 minutes away from my house. And when the COVID happened, I got kind of shut down, but I realized I had all this time to work in my studio. So I went to the studio and worked on this triptych called Stop, Look, and Listen, because I felt like that's what I needed to do in this time, like what was happening. I wasn't getting any really clear information. And parallel to that were the Black Lives Matter issues that were happening. And I painted over these 3 paintings, and in the process of 2 weeks, uncovered them. So I do a lot of layers of acrylic on wood panels, and I scrape and glaze and don't really know where they're going. But emotionally, they're balanced and kind of intuitive when they're finished. And this was one of the triptych. And actually a collector saw it and purchased it pretty quickly. And in revisiting the work for the Art Push magazine, it took me back to that feeling of helplessness and kind of floating. And I think the light blue and the white in the upper right corner, like those areas or layers of the painting really speak to trying to find my way. And after the first couple weeks, I kind of suffered a severe depression and stopped going into the studio and just spent time walking with my wife and making dinner and trying to focus on what was important and what was salient in my day that I could anchor myself with. And eventually I was able to get back into the studio and really try and find my way, because I paint as much as I can. I have a day job. And when I paint, I've been forced to develop a process of, when I go into the studio, I just start painting. I don't have a plan. I paint as many objects as possible. And eventually I focus within the first hour on, okay, this is the work for today. And in revisiting these paintings, I did some 8 by 8s. I did some landscape form. I'm really attracted to the square because I work flat and there's no top or bottom or orientation. And emotionally, it feels like I'm in this kind of void, and I'm in this window, and I'm in this space, and it's very caring and supportive. And when the painting is finished, I feel kind of birthed, and that's super important to me. And I find that abstraction as an African American is a difficult medium for many people to engage, because there's cultural bias, there's baggage in regards to what we should be making or what we're supposed to be making. And I find my practice to be political in that I get to make art and I get to share my voice. And that is a political act. And how people engage it is then I'm making an offering.
Wow. Oh gosh. Wow. Thank you. Sure. And to Bonnie too. Not to Mihang. Thank you. Well, I think you'll all agree that there's no need for me to say anything more. This is such a powerful sharing already. And I don't want to take up more time. Thank you, Raymond, for sharing those.
You're welcome.
Powerful, powerful words. And what really resonates with me is the feeling of depression, and feeling lost. But then again, in that feeling lost is the fearlessness, also mentioned several times by other speakers, where people just jump in and do what they feel they have to do, you know? So anyway, I'll touch more on that as we go forward. I'm excited to hear the next speaker. Thank you, Mihang and Raymond, for sharing powerful stuff. Paige, are you ready?
It's so funny that you said that because my husband's just about to walk in the door with the groceries.
Oh,
So if we can skip to somebody else, I'll mute.
okay, no problem.
Okay.
Who's ready, Bonnie or Heidi? Okay, we'll go with Heidi then.
Well, good evening, everybody, again. And so it's so cool to just hear everybody talking about their process. It's just so different from my own that it's just fascinating to really hear. So as I was mentioning, I've started to really become just maniacally drawn to portraiture right now. And I think it's because I'm just missing my loved ones and my friends and my sense of adventure and going out into the world. I'm a big traveler. I love to experience other cultures. And so I sort of spend time with the people in my paintings, and they may be people that I don't get to see at all anymore, or people that I have intense togetherness with, like my kids, etc. But this is a portrait of a friend of mine who's actually a Serbian immigrant. And he also lives in Oakland. I live in Oakland. And he's got this wonderful little tree chair that he perches himself in. And he's a big giant dude because he's Serbian, and they're one of the two giantest people on earth. So I just thought I had to make a giant painting of him. So it's an extremely large painting. It's about 5 by 5. And he is painted on, and this is sort of cropped so you can't see it, but these are all paper bags that have been recycled. So I experiment a lot with painting on paper and painting with mixed media. So the Monster book has a lot of that. It's a lot of mixed media, kind of cartoony type of stuff. Comic book type of stuff. But anyway, so this has been, you can kind of see the, maybe in the very lower right, you can see some graphics that are it's sort of like a big cherry right there. Yeah. From a shopping bag. And that was sort of built out of just the plethora of shopping bags that started building up in my life, because they can't recycle them. They won't let you take them into the stores and recycle them anymore because of the germs. So I thought, well, I've just got to start using something doing something with these. So I've also got that, and then the tree is made entirely of foil. So and then it's all painted over. So it's just been really an interesting connection for me to try and understand the lack of social interaction, which I almost never really took too seriously. Like I love my friends and I love my family, but I've always been an introvert, and it's always been really important to me to be in my studio. And so I've always just gotten used to being alone and kind of being internal. But somehow this whole experience has made me very focused on others. And so this has been a bit of my therapy as well. So with that, it's just been kind of a change for me, a total change of direction. There's certainly some similarities as well, but it's been really exciting because I've done really, really new things that I haven't done in a long time. So it's been very engaging. And I love to hear Raymond say, well, he goes in and he doesn't even know what he's going to do. And maybe I'm not quite the same way, but I've got that sense of adventure right now. And it's been really, really lovely. So, it's almost a dream come true to be isolated in my studio, but not quite. That's all I have to say.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, it's interesting that the artist loves isolation, but by the same token cannot be isolated. So it's an interesting paradox that we face. And what struck me about, anyway, let me not talk about the paintings right away. But the one thing that struck me is the composure the posture of your friend, just taking command of his space. So it's interesting that, but at the same time he was wearing dark glasses. So, anyway, we'll talk more about that. Thanks so much for sharing. Interesting. Okay, Paige, you're next.
All right, we got the groceries put away, so we're good. I'm relating heavily to the introverts in the crowd. The pieces that I made, so they're interactive sculptures. They light up at night and they also purr. So there's a few spots on them, when you touch them, the cats will start to purr and they vibrate. And the frequency that cats vibrate in is very healing and soothing. And the whole idea behind them was to give people a place to chill out, because these also were out at Burning Man, where it can be very chaotic, and for introverts it's very overwhelming. So I insisted that these sculptures be put way out where people had to discover them. And then when they did, they had a place, because they're the size of a Volkswagen Beetle, because that's the measurements that I took when I submitted my proposal. And so they're large. You can sit on them, climb on them, lay on them. And petting them, it was a place to go and chill out. And I am a big cat person, as you can see. I'm wearing cats everywhere, and that was like a really big thing for me, is like to have the comfort of these pieces so people could relate to it. And because it's an animal, they immediately recognize it and can connect to it on whatever level, like whether they're a cat lover or it's just like an animal they can interact with. I think someone asked where they are. These cats are located at Point San Pablo Harbor in Richmond. It's a really cool place. There's several sculptures out there now. They're making it a nice little destination point. There's like a nice little awesome barbecue place that just opened up out there. So it's really beautiful out there. So they get to be outside, which is I enjoy that too. That the sculptures are outside. They're powder coated and address. So Point San Pablo Harbor, it's when you're going to go over the San Rafael Richmond Bridge, like you're coming from Richmond, you're heading over to Marin. It's the last exit before you go over the bridge, like Stenmark Drive. And it's a long, you go through some really amazing, not uncharted, but they're like the old wine havens out there, the old castle looking thing, and some crazy open land, beautiful open land. You see the harbor, and it's a beautiful space. You can find it online. It's Point San Pablo Harbor. And there's like a Kate Rodenbush piece and a Michael Christian piece out there, and a Peter Hazel piece. It's really neat. People get to experience it and play on it. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much. What's the vibration that's healing that they vibrate?
So it's I think between 75 and 145 hertz. I'd have to look that up again, but there's like a frequency.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
That like with the cats, it's a healing. It also like it lowers your blood pressure, and the cats like heal themselves. And when you pet a cat, you kind of feel calm. So the speakers on the cats are actually mini bass shakers that are bolted right to the sculpture. So the whole sculpture vibrates, but it's a very soft audio. So you have to kind of lean in, and you touch the animal, and the whole thing, you can hear it if you put your hand on the sculpture and your ear to your hand.
Awesome.
So it's kind of like a bone shaker thing.
Wow. All right. This is just so fascinating. It's mind blowing. It's like, from Raymond's abstract to the moon, to the cats that purr, to the Serbian guy in the tree chair. It's just so fascinating. Thank you so much for making it so beautifully diverse and rich and deep. And so, wow. I don't know if we'll have enough time. I'm just super excited about going into the open discussion now, but we've got both Bonnie to share, and then we'll open it up. Thank you so much, Paige.
Thank you. Thank you.
If you can type in the location in the chat while Bonnie presents.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bonnie, you're on.
All right. These have been so wonderful. Hearing everybody. Okay, this piece, oh, it doesn't fill the whole screen. I mean, you can't see the whole thing, but that's okay. Yeah, now you can. When I started out, I told you I started out in pottery. It was the expression on pottery was, of course, the shape, and then the glazing creates an abstraction. So I got into printmaking, everything was abstract. And then all of a sudden I got into encaustic, and I started feeling actually subject matter coming. And this particular piece is pretty old. It's 2015 or 16, and it's titled Returning. And there's something about death and dying and butterflies and darkness and ghosts. And I don't know where this came from. You know, I didn't know at the time where it was coming from. I've always kind of worked in my subconscious and emotional self. And I've had, we were talking a lot about COVID and everything. And I've always suffered a lot of depression. So, you know, this comes from all that. And interestingly, about 6 months to a year later, my appendix burst and I almost died. And I remember waking up in the Alameda Hospital saying, am I dead? And I had just done this piece, and it's like, no, I don't want to be dead. I want to keep doing my art. That's what saved me. I wanted to be back doing my artwork. So there's a real personal feeling when I look at this one, and my children looked at it, and I gave them several pieces to look at, and we all went on to this one because somehow it represents something that I haven't been able to capture completely. Right now, I'm having trouble getting back to my encaustic. I've been doing a lot of health stuff, and but I did start teaching ceramics. So I think now that that's started, I can start doing more encaustic again. And sometimes it's abstract. To me, it's about, you know, balance and all these different things. I don't plan it. If I try to plan it, it doesn't turn out. It really disturbs me. And I'll have to just throw it out and start over. So I've got piles of these boards that we were talking about sitting in the garage. And anyway, let's see, what else can I tell you about this one? But encaustic, you know, I've got a wonderful studio, and so I have all these different types of art forms in there. And if you see them compared to each other, there is an overall feeling going on that keeps coming back. So I'm really anxious to see what's going to happen next. And I do think that art is saving my soul. Definitely.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Wow. Yeah, that gave me chills when you gave the backstory of that piece. You know, it's so powerful. When I saw the submission, it has that feeling of crossing a boundary, two worlds. There was just something about it, you know. So thanks for sharing that.
Thank you for telling me that. Yeah.
Yeah. In the last discussions, I just want to bring up for people who missed the last discussions, but something that came up that artists kept talking about was knowing your true worth or your value in this life, and knowing the value of your work. You know, what's the work that you were sent here to do? For example, we were talking about Yolanda was really pushing artists to submit for the Young Me exhibition, and Cheryl jumped in to say, hey, have you submitted? So Cheryl was the reminder. Yolanda was the pusher in the community saying, hey, submit. But she had to have somebody back her up, who was Cheryl. So both of them were doing their work in different forms. But at the end of it all, it ended up being Yolanda got into the exhibition, and Cheryl's a happy camper because her friend got in. And so that brings me to the point that I heard from Mihang that there's inner work to be done. I heard from Raymond that art saved his life. I heard from Paige that there's a healing vibration in the art form. I heard from Heidi that she misses the people and looks at all these grocery bags and wonders what to do with them, therefore incorporates them into this new world that will be offered to the rest of the world. So with those metrics that we've placed down, does anybody want to speak on that, on the role of art, and especially now in the pandemic? I know we've touched on it already, but what's the healing we're talking about? What's the uncomfortable space we're talking about? You know, what are we healing from? What are we scared of? Most of us aren't. We're jumping into the work without a plan, but it turns out, yet we have people with a plan and things are not working out. So am I missing something? Yes, Raymond.
When I build, there's a plan, and then the train kind of leaves the station. That's my metaphor. When I paint consistently, I see my growth. Sometimes there's failure, sometimes there's success, and I get my wife to give me an opinion, and I take outside feedback, but I'm not attached. I'm disattached from the object. I'm attached to the practice. I'm attached to paint and liquid, manifesting my emotions. And what I get is the healing. And then there's a job of artists of sharing that and presenting it and pricing it. And I didn't apply to the DeYoung. I politically felt like the Bay Area doesn't honor the artists that are here, and was unable to get out of my funk to do that. And I want to go see all the artists that are awarded. And I think it's huge, but I think I've started, part of the COVID, I started sending artists that I like small pieces of mine. I would just like, hey, Victor, what's your address? Hey, everybody, what's your address? Send it to me on Instagram and I'll just send you a piece. And that empowered me in some way, because I make stuff all the time and it's so valuable. And yet giving it is a value to me. So I don't know if that answers the question.
Whoa. I didn't ask to be blown out of the water.
Well,
That was brilliant. That was what I loved about that was being invested in the process, but not being attached to the piece. That's that. Anybody want to chime in? I could go on forever on that piece, on that tangent. Does anybody? So going back to that again, Raymond, the way you spoke about your not being attached to the result, but the process, it reminds me of the journey, you know, focusing on enjoying the journey, learning from the journey, and
Right.
also balancing it out. There will be successes, there will be failures, you know. But what I see again is a companion, is a second set of eyes looking at your work, you know.
Right.
And how beautiful is it that you're just sending out your artwork to people? It's pretty amazing.
I think as artists, there's no roadmap, and we're very driven. I'm driven to paint. I'm driven to work. And now that I'm in a relationship, I'm driven to find balance. And when I paint, whether I'm traveling or painting in my studio, I feel balance. And then I can be more present in relationship. And in the COVID, my primary relationship has been my partner. And we've slowed, and we started making menus, and we started cooking, and we started finding an intimacy that I have with my painting, but it's engendered even more in community when you have those special people. Like being a part of this is inspiring and will inspire painting for me, because I'm receiving so much and being able to try and say words about my painting.
Oh, thank you so much for that.
Sure.
Thank you so much. Wow. Does anybody want to chime in on that, on what Raymond has shared?
I'd like to say something. On a kind of a different note but it came up with what he was saying, and like about giving, and I've done a lot of that myself. But I also give of myself, and I feel better. And I've started a lot of art organizations in my life. Currently, I have a nonprofit, which Jess and Wes are part of, and another group. And Cheryl's also part of this. And it's like anything to do with art, I want everybody to have it. It's like I want to be able to give to other people the opportunity to share their work. And so that's kind of like a little different turn from what he was saying. But it's still the same, because it develops an intimacy with these people, these people in my organizations. One of them's here that lives in Oregon is in this thing tonight. I was really surprised. It's wonderful.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks. I would also like to say thank you again. The submission was totally, it was an unpaid submission. We're creating something out of the nothingness that people so undervalue, So once again, as I'm looking at this, I'm just thinking, look at what value we're putting into the world. Because I mean, when you hear yourself speak, the wisdom, the philosophy, the experience that's coming through, this is gold. This is just what people need. This is healing for me right now. That's why I'm going off in a rant. And I'm going to put somebody up, 2 people, 3 people on the spot, which will be Mihang, Paige, and Heidi. All right. I'm going to put you 3 on the spot, starting with Mihang. Don't worry, I'm a very friendly guy. It's not a spotlight. You spoke of inner work, the work in the dark. Could you speak a little bit more about that from your own personal perspective?
Sure. I liked what you talked about in terms of, you asked, what is it that we need right now and why is art so important? And I view art as when it is truly fulfilling, when you find that your purpose, when you find your purpose through art, it is inevitable that you actually find it through the people around you and the world that you're connected to. Finding your own internal purpose is actually also finding your relationship to those that you impact in the world around you. And so I think that just taking responsibility for the awareness of what's going on is, the process of creating art. When I am making work in a way that allows me to really face, like I said before, uncomfortable truths and things that maybe have, been brushed under the rug for years in my own personal life or in the social life, the ecosystem that we live in. The end result, you will always see, has a deeper connection than just my personal story. There's other stories out there that's going to relate. And so I think what people really need right now, the reason why people really need art is because they need that reflection, because there's a lot that needs to be reflected on. And art, I think, is more of a vehicle. It's not the only vehicle, but it is a very, I think, helpful vehicle for a lot of people to use that as a way to reflect, to take that time to, you kind of isolate yourself and you are quiet, or maybe not quiet, but you're focused and you're intentional about what you're doing. And that, I think, is what people need. And in that process, we hope that, it's not just a matter of creating something that has to be perfect or has to be beautiful. It's really just creating to create space for thinking, creating to create space for conversation, to create space for reflection. And the more I think people take the time to do that for themselves, whether they are doing it, with an actual physical creation, or maybe they're just I think creativity doesn't have to be physical. It can be the way that you maybe take yourself to the waters, the beach, and you spend some time with reflection. You're actually creating space for creativity. And I think that is I think relationship between what people need right now is you don't have to necessarily make art, but creating that mental space for creativity will allow you to tap into the importance of reflection, because we just get so caught up in moving through our day-to-day so fast, and we just want to get things done, especially in the Bay Area. It's fast, go, let's get it done. And we forget, and there's the reasons why we have a lot of the issues that we have is because there's not enough time for reflection. There's not enough time for these kind of relationship building experiences and facing ugly truths. And I think when people do that, when artists are doing that and they're sharing that through their own way, their own color, their own expression, it just gives more avenues for people to relate to that. Like, oh my gosh, something about what you created really spoke to me, and I wouldn't have had that time to reflect on that if you didn't create that. And I think because there's so many different people out there in the world, the more artists there are, the more of those kind of conversations and relationships and that time for internal reflection, that you're creating more space for that. So in a nutshell, that's kind of what I thought of from what you shared and from what the other artists shared.
Beautiful. I'm going to move on to Paige and then Heidi. Before I open it up to the artists, just in case you want to ask each other questions. And then after that, we'll open it up to our great audience who made this happen. So Paige, is there something you want to add, or could I go ahead with the question?
You can go ahead with the question. It's can be hard to follow up with Ming Hong. So that was amazing.
May I just say that the universe is made up of infinite differentiation. There are no two leaves that are alike, no two blades of grass that are alike, no two crystals of snow are alike. So I would like to say, Ming, that was fantastic. Raymond, that was absolutely beautiful, but that's because we're infinitely different. So do take your space, Paige, and own your space, please. My question was, why are you healing people?
I just feel that at any given point, I mean, everyone needs healing at some point, and the cats, the idea came because of what I needed, like just for the peace and the winding down from chaos and just being overstimulated and stuff. And again, as an introvert, it happens pretty rapidly and it becomes overwhelming. And the idea of having a space and a place to like kind of disappear and lean up against these animals and have them vibrate. And the most interesting and powerful moment I had, because part of it when I built them, I had to think about what if there were 20 people jumping up and down on them, how strong would I have to make them? And just after they were installed, this giant man, I was thinking of Heidi's friend. I mean, it was a guy, just big guy, big kilt, just comes off this bike. He was just barreling at the cats on his bike, and he just gets off the bike and he throws the bike down and just starts. I'm like, oh my God, he's just gonna like jump on these cats. He just walked up and just hugged it. Just like put his arms around, and he started to cry. He said he had just lost his kitty. This big, giant, wonderful man. And just like, okay, that's what it's here for. So it ended up being a really amazing space. And where they are now, they're right across the street from the road from their restaurant. So the people that come and have food end up going over there and playing, and the kids climb up on it. And I tell the kids there's a secret way to get the cats to purr, and they have to get the grown-ups to figure it out. And so there's interaction and play, and you just completely check out from, you know, if you're just having a crappy day, you know, it's like, go pet a cat, you know. It's just, it's kind of simple, but it works. And I'm really happy that it worked out that way. My husband is helped me with the electronics on it. I said, this is what I want it to do. And he's like, everything you want it to do, no problem. He's like, but you want it to interact. So we had some programming problems, but they work great now, really nicely.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. Phew. Yeah, I'm speechless. It's not that I got nothing to say, but sometimes you don't have to say anything. You know, what's beautiful is beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Heidi, is there anything you want to add to your presentation, or could I go ahead with the question?
Oh, you know, I'm fine to not. I don't particularly feel like I need to add. I do think it's just sort of observing everybody else speaking is. I think we're all talking about the same thing, that there's something about our practice that is really nourishing and has become, for me, almost more nourishing. Like there's just no way I think I could be happy right now without doing art. And maybe at other times when we're allowed to go outside and we're allowed to be social, or we're allowed to go places, that might fill the gap for a while. But for now, it has been sort of my savior. And you know, so I think that it's funny because it really does seem like everybody's sort of talking about the same thing in terms of what it brings to them.
Great. I would just like to proceed with a quote from Khalil Gibran's book, The Prophet, when I think about your work. And in there, he talks about children, and he says, "Children, your children are not your own. They're like arrows on a bow. You shoot them, and where they land is where they land. You've got no option to that." Okay, I'm in a meeting right now. Oh, that's too precious. And your piece kind of reminded me of that, because when I looked at it, I just thought to myself, here's a person who's determined their space. They're sitting in a tree chair. You know, they've carved out their own individual space, and they're relaxed, but they're in control of it. They own their space, right? But at the same time, they're wearing glasses, so you can't see who they are. They could be anybody, right? So they were representing in me that aspect that I can be in control of my own space. And then when I read about the tinfoil, what does tinfoil do? It covers up things, right? It protects things, but it's so delicate. So it kind of like reminded me of the facade of the time we're living in, like all the shiny and the glitter, but at the same time, you put your finger against it, it breaks. So that's what your piece said to me. It just own your space, you know, and be comfortable where you are. You know, create your own space. A tree chair. I mean, I've never heard of that. You know, so that's what that gave me. It is 8:30. Damn, we're good. It's 8:30, and we're about to open it up to the audience. But before we do, artists, do we have any interaction with amongst the artists before we open it up? Any questions from artist to artist? Oh, okay, fair enough. So Jess and Wes, please open it up for the audience. And while the audience gets their questions ready, yeah, this has been totally amazing for me, because it just speaks of the generosity that artists have. You know, Raymond is talking about physically just turning the system back, back to front. I'll give you the art for free, just give me your address. How beautiful is that, to people who want to pass it on, like Bonnie, who just want to ensure that that information and knowledge carries on. There's nothing more beautiful than seeing that. And then Mihang just sharing those insightful, deep thoughts about the inner search. Because what I've come to learn is that the inner world is reflected on in the outer space, the torment we see outside is what's inside. So anyway, I don't want to over philosophize. And I'm gonna see the cats. I'm gonna go see the cats, definitely. Yeah. All right. Do we have any questions from the audience?
Did you? Sorry, Dave had his computer volume on. I don't really have a question so much. First of all of this art is amazing. I have a personal connection literally to every single piece. Bonnie's, the ephemeral nature of your piece, it just feels so otherworldly. Raymond, your piece is it shows a lot of motion and emotion and reaction. And Mihang, I love the calming nature, the connection with nature. I'm a biologist by training, so I love that connection. And Heidi, I just love the power of your piece. The confidence in that piece is very, very cool. So, and Paige, I'm going to get to you in a minute, but all of them are just phenomenal. Paige, yours speaks to me, not only because I'm a cat lover, but the piece I have in the book is a little girl curled up on the back of a tarantula. And I call it Tranquility, because whenever I get really scared or stressed out or need a place to go to meditate, and my calming place is to go imagine myself curled up on the back of a giant tarantula. And some people find that crazy, insane, scary, but tarantulas make a sound called stridulation that's similar to purring in cats. And so it's created by rubbing parts of their body, like their legs together or their bristles together. And tarantulas particularly, like think of crickets, they make more of a chirping sound, but tarantula, the sound is purring. And so I always, whenever I freak out, I picture myself just in that calming place. I have a big tarantula that's protecting me. I feel safe. I have that comfort of the purr that just, it resonates with your own, being, your own core. And so the concept that you added that into your sculptures, it resonates with me so much, because that's exactly what I was trying to capture in my piece. But a lot of people don't identify it with it as well as, a cat, a giant sculpture of a cat. But I'm a huge cat lover too. So, but I wanted to put that out there to show the dichotomy of what can be scary, but also comforting. So really cool. I mean, it just touched me. I'm going there tomorrow, by the way, to see your sculpture. Tomorrow's my birthday, and I told Dave we're going there for my birthday because I want to make the cats purr.
All right. So the secret to the kitties.
Sorry, I can't.
Am I on?
Yes, now I can hear you.
So both of the cats, they did purr. They have name tags on them. One is Luna, one is Vega. Mm-hmm. Vega's purr is not working right now. Luna's works.
Cool.
There are 3 circles. So they're all made of metal circles welded together. You'll see floating circles. So it's acrylic with another piece of metal. That is the petting pad. So when you touch those, the cats will purr, and they'll continue to purr for like 5 minutes or so, unless you pet them again. But I think one of the petting pads on Luna is not working. So don't be discouraged. Just keep petting the cat. It will start purring.
I'll just make Dave simulate the purr.
Great.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Great. Yes. Do go ahead, Heidi.
I actually want to know, can you hear the tarantulas purring? Because I've never heard that before.
Sarah, I think that was
Sarah.
Sorry. So you'd have to have, you can, it's very, very faint, and it depends on the species of tarantula. So some tarantulas have a louder sound than others. But most of the tarantulas, you'd need to kind of like either have them like this or have a little microphone down there to hear it. So but it's like, it's not quite as loud as a cricket. And it's more, it's a different sound. It's not a chirping. So actually, there are a few species of spiders, not necessarily tarantulas. tarantulas and jumping spiders tend to make the purring sound. Other tarantulas tend to sound more like a light chirp, like a chirping. So it's much quieter than a cricket, but you can audibly hear it if it's like in a quiet space.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's my
Oh,
piece.
wow.
It's
Oh,
watercolor.
mm,
It's all watercolor.
mm,
But yeah, so that's where I go when I'm scared.
mm. Wow.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you for sharing. Do we have any questions? Jess and Wes, are there any questions coming through from the audience? No, not yet. So one chief reflection I'm taking from this is facing the darkness, to use your language, Miang, and being depressed and having a companion, then falling into an intimate, into a more intimate connection with that person. They being there, your eyes also, these words from Raymond. So I'm seeing a lot of darkness, uncertainty, but at the same time, creation continues. You know, artists still create. You know, we are still carrying on. And the beauty of tonight's talk is that it ended up being more about healing other people, healing the world, taking us to a better place. And I did not see that coming at all. But it's good to see that when you let things be, they take their own form. You know, life is prophesying. So sorry, my accent is off today. You know, and when I came on with this, I was like, well, those questions are rather weak. But part of me was like, the artists have their work. Let them talk about their work, and it worked magnificently. What I would love to see is us pushing this to as many people as we can. Not only is it good for the artist exposure, but also just to hear the amazing words of wisdom that have been shared today. You know, it's just been mind blowing. I mean, Jess and Wes, I think you'll agree with me that some nuggets were dropped there that are really need some follow up after this whole pandemic is done. I think we need to do this again and have a live book launch where we can meet and talk again about this. So as you can see, I'm beginning to round it up as I wait for questions to come through. Do we have any questions from the audience? Yes, Heidi.
So I know the book launch, I think, is November 7th, but I was just wondering, actually, are they just going to be available starting September 7th, or will they be available before that?
September 7th?
September 7th or November 7th is the book.
Did I say September? I'm sorry, I meant November.
I thought you said November, but maybe you did say September.
So the we will, so all those sales now are pre-sales. Reserve the copies, and then we will, depending on how many pre-orders we get, we're going to order them to have them hopefully in stores and in hand by the first or second week of November. So
I'd say mid to late November, just to add a little padding.
Yeah, mid to late November. But we haven't decided. So we haven't decided how many extra we're going to get. Books Inc. is doing this book launch party, but it's kind of a gamble because they take a lot. I mean, for the retail, they take half the money. There's not the books are kind of expensive. Where there's not a lot of, this is not a lot of money involved in the whole project.
It's not really about making money with Books Inc. It's about the exposure that we'll get from being inside Books Inc. and having I think people seeing the East Bay art book in a local bookstore will be kind of exciting for a lot of people.
So what stores were you guys planning on trying to get it into?
That was the only one, Books Inc. Well, I think this is the first time we've done this. It already seems to have a pretty good response, and people seem to like it. I think it's working well, but we don't want to, we're not in the book business. We're not going to buy 100 books and hope that we sell them. So, it's kind of a double-edged sword, the book release party, because it is great that they're doing that. But honestly, the books, any store that carries it is going to make more money off the book than we are, because the cost involved. They want half the money, and there's very little. The books are costing close to $15 a piece to get printed. So I mean, and there, so even when we sell for 35, we're talking about making like $2.50, $3. So investing in a bunch of books, so it's kind of a bummer, because they will draw. They say, oh, we get 50 or 60 people at our Zoom book launches.
70 people.
But what are we going to eat?
And it's also Christmas is right around the corner, so we don't want to have too short of books either.
Yeah, we're kind of in a weird. So we're feeling it out, right? So we're going to
This
kind
is
of.
the first time, like you said. So yeah, we're definitely feeling it out. But there's a lot of excitement about the book.
Yeah.
And I
so,
think that when it's out there in front of people and people pick it up and go, I saw that mural driving to work. I know that artist.
Yeah.
That's even going to make people more excited.
But
about
I think
it.
the thing we're really going to push is, if you want the book, you pre-order it, because if you don't, there's a very good chance you will not
Right.
get it. Because I mean, if we're close, if we're just right around cost, we're going to maybe buy 10 extra copies to have at Book Inc. to sell for their book launch, because we can't just hope that great book launch is going to sell 100 books or whatever. You know what I mean? It's just too much of a gamble. We're a fairly small grassroots kind of arts organization. We're just 5 artists.
Okay.
Sorry, Victor, I'm rambling.
I just want to interject there and say we're focused on the book and we're missing the actual value of that project. Sometimes when you plant an apple seed, you don't expect the bark from the apple, you expect the apples. But there's so much more that seed gives you, even the shade, Even when the tree dies, you get heat from the wood. So what I'm saying is that for me, the project is not necessarily about the book, it's about this. This is the way, when you really, I'm going to go back and have to listen 2-3 times to what was said here, because so much value has been added to my life in less than 30 minutes. You see what I mean? So I think when people see that, the book becomes an important part of it. But what I'd love to see is these artists being invited to talk on panels about their work, because people have seen it and they've seen the book, they've seen the work in the book. I think we're doing the work that we've been talking about tonight, that you just do what you feel you have to do, I didn't want to submit to the book, but Jess kept pushing me, and I finally did. So I think the focus for me is we did it. Tonight we did it. We said what we had to say. We shared beautiful thoughts and beautiful work, and it will live for eternity. My kids are gonna watch this talk at some point and say, "Oh, I remember when I was in the background." But more so, they're gonna learn the lessons that have been shared tonight. So for me, that's where the true value of it is, And I got to meet Raymond, Mihang, Paige, Heidi, and Bonnie. My network has grown. What more do you want? To sell a book? Okay, fair enough. But I'm more than happy that I know 5 more people that I can reach out to and say, hey, I'm feeling low, because you've put me at a comfortable place now to say that. So thank you. With that being said, it is 8:36. And once again, I would like to thank Jess and Wes and Art Push for putting this together. And coming from Zimbabwe, there were times when we went to work simply because you couldn't sit around and do nothing, but your paycheck was useless because the inflation was at 1,000,000%. And when I came to America, I was surrounded by people who were too busy, like Miang said, doing their own thing, that I felt sick when I got on BART because nobody would look at me or talk to me. there was a part of me dying every day because it was reaching out, but nobody was reaching back. You see what I mean? So when the pandemic hit, suddenly I saw the same look in people's faces. Everybody wanted to reach out and connect, you know? So when I hear Raymond say, just give me your address and I'll send you an art piece, that level of connection, that level of evolution just gives me hope that art is the way that we're gonna get through all this. You know, not the lies, not the politics, just the art, because you can feel it, you know. And like Bob Marley said, when the music hits you, you feel no pain. When the art touches you, you can feel the gain. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Victor.
Yeah, another amazing job. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight.
Thank you for the invitation.
And please do share it with your network, because Jess and Wes showed me my true worth. I thought my story didn't mean anything. And Cheryl also showed me my true worth by buying one of my pieces. I say this openly because self-doubt was a big player in my life and still is. And I don't know who I am without the people reflecting it back to me. So please do share widely, because some of the things you said tonight have made me really want to cry, because it's so powerful, but embodied with love and care, and it's just out to heal. You know, how much more power can you give the world than that, you know? It's been nothing but love tonight, and I appreciate you all. I thank you all. Please share widely. People need this. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Victor.
you.
I agree.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
Thank
night.
you.
I got chills from
Jess
tonight.
and
It was a beautiful,
Nice to meet everybody.
beautiful discussion.
Thanks, Puffy.
Love it. So thank you, everyone.